I think that we should start off, though, with both Fred and Kelly. Fred, talk about, people don't understand what NYC and Company really is. And I've been involved in it for years, and the leadership impact of the organization is pretty incredible, that you basically are the mayor of our side of the business, you know? You're the mayor for us in our industry. And how do you represent us and what's going on? And then Kelly, I wanted you to talk about your business and how it interacts with the event business, because you're doing a lot of things that have design thinking and event thinking, and how it translates together. So Fred, why don't you start with how NYC and Company has this leadership role in the city?
Thank you very much, David, and it's so good to be with you both. And David, you've certainly been with us through crisis over the many years, and especially after 9/11. So thank you for all you've done for New York.
Thank you so much.
Huge advocate for this industry. So NYC and Company is the official tourism and partnership organization for the city of New York. And when we say tourism, we mean the entire ecosystem of travel and tourism, including events. And of course, events bring so much of the vibrancy to New York City and the global spotlight. So I'm grateful for this opportunity.
And when you say events, you're also meaning meetings and expos and conferences and
absolutely, corporate activations, absolutely the broad stroke of the events world, right? And New York City is an international hub for events. It is a critical pathway for us. So right after the crisis began, we were monitoring it from the early days. As you know, China has become a very big market for New York. It's our number 2 market after the UK in normal times. So we were monitoring the early sort of fallback in the Chinese business before we really knew that the virus was really coming into America. And so we had been sort of activated. Our crisis management team went into effect in February. And so by the time the pandemic really began to lock down and really began to expand here in the US, we began to pull together our leadership. So as you recall, and you were part of the after 9/11 for New York Rising, which was our coalition at that time. So we stood up the new version of New York Rising, which is the Coalition for Hospitality and Tourism Recovery. We don't have such a catchy name this time. But we brought back our 3 former chairmen, and that's John Tisch, Tim Zagat, and Emily Rafferty. They came back into the fold right away, tapped leaders of industry, including Danny Meyer, Thelma Golden at the Studio Museum, Peter Ward from the Hotel Union. Everyone came together to put the best minds back into the game to think about what recovery could look like for New York. So it has been, like for everyone, it's been a tumultuous ride over the past 6 months. The coalition published the roadmap for recovery for New York City called All In, the roadmap for tourism's reimagining and recovery, because it is as much about
Where can people find that to see that if they wanted to get more?
Thank you. Absolutely. So if you go to nycgo.com/recovery, you'll find everything there. The coalition is there, including its leadership, and the roadmap document is there to be downloaded.
And anybody that does business in New York City could gain knowledge from that to answer a lot of questions, because there's a lot of questions everywhere.
Absolutely, and that's been one of the key activities for us, is really communicating. Right, in a crisis, you communicate, and you'll find a lot of detail in that roadmap. I think the team did a remarkable job of putting it together. But if you need more information, you can always reach out to anyone at NYC and Company, and we'll be happy to help connect dots.
Kelly, why don't you talk a little about what your organization does, and then we'll sort of connect all the dots here.
Sure. Well, my company works with a lot of the same folks that work in the event and entertainment industry, and in particular Broadway. So where we might work on permanent installations or more global installations, we pull from that community of designers and talent and producers that are working in the event industry, and a lot of that comes from the need to tell a story, right? So the work that we do is really about telling a story. It's about being creative, and so we pull from that creative community, and so it's really important to us that they stay healthy.
But you tell a story in a different way. You're telling a story using experiential.
Sure.
As your
Sure.
modality for it in many cases. Right?
Well, and it's the same thing that we do with events in a lot of ways, right? So when we talk about creating an experience, we talk about, what's the difference between creating an experience and going to a Broadway show? And we're going to talk, the Broadway shows not in a traditional sense.
We're going to get into all of this.
generally speaking, we like to give the audience a role to play. We like to give them a reason to be there, right? Some sort of purpose for existing. And so, when we pull from this kind of diverse community of creative and technical people who are really good at doing that kind of work, understanding what that means, we're more successful in creating a really genuine experience for the audience. And so when we start talking about events and building events, we want to create really inspiring events. We want to create events that are valuable, right?
Well, we talked about that especially now,
right?
Events have to be more valuable, because you don't want to come to an event that's going to kill your grandmother.
Right.
You got to make sure that it's really important.
Right. Well, and we have to make it, and we have to give people a reason to want to be there.
More than ever now.
More than ever now, and so it's incumbent upon us as event producers and as entertainment producers and Broadway producers to find a way to make our audiences feel comfortable, but also allow them again to drop their inhibitions and to enjoy their experience. How do we protect that time, right? How do we protect that sacred experience that we have with them, that sacred agreement, that pact that we have with our audience, where we say, come on in, have this experience, participate in this event, and we've done what we can, everything that we can, to make this a safe experience for you so you can participate in a safe way.
Okay, so now let me go to Fred, because Fred is responsible for making sure it's safe in some ways, because he's got the community at heart. How are we enabling people to feel comfortable and enjoy these experiences? What is going on in terms of the concrete steps that we're taking?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been interesting. Of course, New York has gone from really the epicenter of the American, viral experience to now really one of the safest places in the country. We're closely watching these new outbreaks in Brooklyn and Queens, of course. But New Yorkers, have high mask compliance. I think, it's remarkable the skills and talent in our healthcare community, our essential workers and frontline workers that have all come together to make New York as safe as it has become over the past many weeks, certainly from where we were in the spring. So one of the elements we know, and you both just spoke to it, in recovering the business, is confidence, right? And it's confidence in safety, it's confidence in knowing that your partners are trusted in their behaviors. We stood up very early on in the process this summer, what we call the NYC Stay Well Pledge, and it really is a two-way just communication. It's just a reminder. The governor and the mayor are giving us all of the safety protocols. The health commissioner is laying out what needs to be done. We're reminding the community and visitors, right, that are engaging with businesses, that they have a role to play in this as well. It's a two-way commitment. We're going to take all the necessary precautions to keep you safe as a business, but you also are incumbent to wear your mask and respect the distancing rules and to play along so that we all can get back to business safely. So reminding visitors about that is really important.
Do you think, though, that, I hear it every day from the 12 million people that are impacted in our industry about this, that the theater's empty right now. We haven't come back to a place where it's even financially viable to run a business. And you see businesses struggling every single day, with the Washington not really reacting as well. What is this person that's watching this, who is sort of struggling, saying, oh yeah, it's great to have all of these feelings and features and everything else, but what's happening, and how could we get to the point where this place is filled up, or at least filled up safe enough so that we can have a business?
Absolutely.
And run our event industry.
We're all yearning for that moment. And, and you're absolutely right. You can have the best marketing plans in the world, the best promotions, and the best safety procedures. But if the American public and the global audiences don't feel safe, the demand is not going to return. And that's certainly the case that we're seeing here in the United States. You're seeing some rural destinations, that are beginning to do moderately well as people that are confident enough to get out. We're certainly seeing that amongst younger generations. They are a little bit less risk averse for good or for bad, and are probably going to help lead this recovery in some way. But we have to restore their confidence. And right now, and this is not a political statement, but the lack of a national strategy is really impeding us. And you certainly see that in the big cities, not just New York, but you're seeing it in Boston and in Chicago and Philadelphia and in San Francisco, the same challenges. And the American traveler certainly, and I'm only speaking about them because the international borders are largely closed right now, is really reluctant to get back out on the road in significant ways. And certainly, they have their skepticism when it comes to events and gatherings. So we have to get our story together. We have to show them how we are restoring confidence. We have to also measure the sentiment of our audience. Just standing up an event is not enough. And so we have to help rebuild confidence really from the ground up.
And when you say rebuild confidence, as somebody that's watching this, I mean, your job is to watch this and be part of it. What are the signs that you're going to see that'll say, like I've heard that when sports comes back, we'll come back. Like, what is the roadmap that we should be looking at to know that there's at least hope? Because I think we've got to sell hope more than anything right now, because people know that it's too dangerous to just jump right in.
Yeah, I think.
But what do you see?
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to predict, right? I've been looking for that crystal ball. I think
we want you to have the crystal ball.
I would love to have it. I would love to have it. I'm looking for it. I think it's pretty clear, that we're going to have to get past this election cycle for one thing. I think everyone is, just sort of holding their breath to get through the fall in many ways. It's such a challenge, one from a marketing perspective, breaking through. But I think just overall, people are also waiting to see what's going to actually happen with the vaccine. I think that is going to weigh heavily into decision making. So we're really looking into 21 as the best opportunity. We're doing everything we can now to stimulate business within the tri-state area, within the local market. The quarantines are inhibiting people from really traveling into New York broadly as designed. So encouraging corporations to do events here in our own city. You can't go, take that corporate retreat away, or you can't do that activation somewhere, but you can do events here in New York. We're doing an event today here at the New York Times building. So, we are pulling on the civic duty of event organizers to do things in NYC now, as you can. But the signs that we're looking for in terms of, really, you can look at all the travel metrics you want, and we've been measuring those as well, looking to see when our airline bookings going to return, what are searches looking like online when it comes to either delegates or it's leisure travelers, and business travel also is a leading indicator. We're really watching closely what corporate America is doing about returning the workers to the office. That it really is going to be one of the key factors, because if workers aren't returning to the office, they're certainly not going to be going on business trips, and that's really going to impact the event industry.
After 9/11, one of the things that surprised me was the power of the exhibition business, and that was a mountain compared to everything else. Is that still the case? Are you still being driven by that?
I think so too. I mean, if you recall, after 9/11, one of our strategies was to attract big events to New York, to show the world that the city was safe. And two of the first ones that we were able to land, of course, was the Republican National Convention, which wasn't a slam dunk for New York. And the city came together to make that happen. And then, of course, we had the Grammys that came to New York as well. So those two big events really helped shape. I'm sorry, not the Grammys, the Country Music Awards. Country Music Awards. Those two.
The Grammys were the next year or something.
Grammys were right after that. Yeah. Country Music Awards were a big game changer. They'd never been to New York, and it was perception shifting, not only showing that New York is safe, but also that New York is friendly and welcoming. And it was a big boom for us.
And how does Kelly, we're looking at the impact of this COVID crisis on the experience. How is the experience going to change? And also, how are we going to afford the changes that the experience is demanding? Because the economics are changing dramatically. How does someone that's listening who has an event industry company know how to make a profit?
Well, I think there's no question that we're going to have to approach event production in a whole different way, and I'll agree with Fred in that I don't think there's going to be a moment where someone's going to drop a flag and we're going to say, okay, it's good to go, we're ready to go. And so I don't think we're going to see that happen, but we are seeing some signs of life.
Please tell. We want to see signs of life.
For instance, I just attended an event at the Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey, in New Jersey, where they've produced an outdoor series of experiences and shows, which is what they do well, and they've been very thoughtful about their approach. But one of the challenges that they faced was, how do they tell their audience? How do they communicate with their audience? To kind of jump off of what Fred was talking about, we're challenged now with finding a way to communicate with our audience in advance that this experience is going to be safe, that we've thought about it, that we've done the homework to give them a safe experience.
What does that messaging
confidence.
look like? If you're king of the world,
Yeah.
and you can say to your audience, you have the list, you know the people. What do you tell them? Is it that nobody's going to be sick in the audience? How do you communicate that?
Well, I don't think you can say that, right? I mean, I don't think you can.
No.
But I think we start with the understanding that people want to come to these things.
Right.
People want this experience, right? People want to have this experience, and they're missing it, right? They're yearning for it.
But Fred, is that good for us as
Yes.
the city? The pent-up demand.
Yeah, there's no question.
Create a spike.
I was on a call yesterday, and someone described it as a coiled spring, ready to be sprung. And there's no question there's enormous pent-up demand. But Kelly's right. There isn't going to be a moment where a flag is going to drop.
Right.
I mean, the recovery, I think, is going to be gradual, but it's going to be certain. I mean, we're certain that there will be a strong rebound. But it will be a build. There's no question.
Well, we all lived through not 9/11, but 2008 and 2009 that didn't end until 2011.
Right. Right. Exactly.
For most of us, so we're used to, really severe use in recovery. But the cost of doing an event is going to change. What do you do to make the event cost effective? Where do you trim, or where do you add, or do you charge more? What's going to be the solution? And
I think it becomes a clever balance between how you protect a valuable experience for your guest and for your audience, right? How do you continue to make that a valuable experience for them, and still maintain a profitable business plan?
bottom line,
Right.
prices are going to go up.
Yeah.
You're going to have to charge more money. People are going to want to value these more. The ticket prices in Broadway are crazy to begin with, and they're going to have to go up because you're going to have to, right?
Correct.
And so are we going to be able to, are we pricing experiences out of normal people's things, and New York becomes so elite?
Well, I hope not.
I hope not, too.
I hope not. What's interesting is that, like after 9/11, and even 2008 and 9, it's interesting because the market resets.
Yeah.
Right? And it's interesting, if you look just at hotel rates in particular, after 2008 and 9, there was such a dramatic drop in hotel prices in New York City. And of course, that's one of the initial barriers people always throw up is, oh, New York is too expensive, certainly from a hotel perspective. But that changed after the recession in 8 and 9. And in reality, 10 years later, even up to, last fall, in terms of real dollars, the hotel community had not actually recovered rate parity to where they were in 2008. So I think we're going to go through another one of those cycles. You're certainly see it. Rate takes time to rebuild, much to the chagrin of hoteliers, because they are under pressure for costs as well. And I mean, just using them as a benchmark, you can apply that to the airline industry as well. You can apply it to events, and I think the American consumer in particular is going to recognize that they're going to have to pay a premium to a degree for their safety in that sense. It'll be interesting to see how that conversation unfolds.
Do you think, both of you, do you think that the things what we're doing for safety are going to be a permanent part of the timed entrances into events and pre-function space that allow people to spread out more, and changes in the capacity issues? That's going to change everything. We have to retool an entire mindset, if not an industry.
Yeah. We'll have to approach our event production in a different way, for sure. Yep. And I think it's going to be that way for a lot longer than the time that we're going to have. People are they're going to want that experience, right? I mean, being not entirely altruistic, when I attended this event in New Jersey, it's quite nice actually, not having to really vie for elbow space on my chair. I had some, my own kind of little space on the lawn, and I really enjoyed a nice show, and I was outside, and there was no one around me. And,
you had the
I kind of had my little outdoor, living room space. It was quite nice, but that came at a cost. It certainly came at a cost, and that cost is borne a lot by the producer in this case, because they're trying to continue moving forward, right? They need to stay afloat, and doing nothing's not an option for them. So they found a way. Right, they found a way to produce work, but they're doing it certainly at a premium. I'm paying a premium to go to that experience, and not everyone can do that. And so how do we make them accessible?
Well, the great evener now is everybody's talking about hybrid events. They're talking about virtual events. Is that going to be the equalizer in a sense? Are hybrids here to stay? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think we had hybrids before.
Yeah, but we haven't had hybrids that were people felt comfortable that this was not just a nice little add-on. Now people think of it as they're doing whole benefits on this. Will that end up being death by PowerPoint? You know, the idea that we're going to be so sick of that, and that people, can you create that same experience? Can my Angelo come through the computer and let you feel it the way you feel it here when I feel it, like, you know, your energy?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't.
I mean, Fred, that's what we're selling about New
Yeah,
York.
it is absolutely what we're selling. And you know, I mean, who knew we were living through the age that we were living in, where everything was just so, you know, so open. It is a complete shift in our mindset, and I am confident that people are going to crave those in-person events again, and those in-person experiences. You cannot replicate that. But I do think the hybrid model is going to be here to stay. I think in many ways, I think what a lot of organizers have found is that, you know, engagement in many cases has gone through the roof. There are a lot of variables for that, but I think people have found that the opportunity to engage. We see it in our board meetings. We've certainly seen it in our committee work and the meetings we've had with the membership here in New York, that we have greater participation now than we did when it was in person.
Well, they're not traveling.
And they're not traveling. Less to do, I guess.
It may not
on one
be.
hand, which I don't
on one
know if
hand
that's
it's great, on the other hand,
good thing. I don't know if that's a
problem.
good thing, but I think people will, you know, have finally broken down some technology barriers and are comfortable engaging in a way online. I mean, I remember how awkward it was my first Zoom call. I had never really adopted that before. I resisted. You know, I was a holdout. I preferred the in-person, and it took me a while to get comfortable with it. And now it's, you know, like everything, it becomes second nature. But nothing's going to replace in-person experiences.
With that said, thank you guys so much for this conversation. It's inspiring to hear you, and we want it to be inspiring to the people listening so that they realize that they're in a really important industry. Sometimes we have a self-esteem issue in our industry, and we're doing really important work, and people have to know that and know how important this is, not only to the economy, but to the lives of the people that are sitting in the audience.
Yeah, it's true. I was going to say, you know, people may have taken the industry for granted in the past, but their lives were richer because of it.
Yes.
And I think they're seeing that now, and I think that is going to help see us through to the other
Absolutely.
side. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the future too.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, David.